I'm Brandon House, and welcome to World YouTube's history of the attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan. On March 21st, 1981, Reagan and his wife Nancy attended a fundraising event at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. In his autobiography entitled An American Life, President Reagan wrote, quote, "I looked up at the presidential box above the stage where Abe Lincoln had been sitting the night he was shot and felt a curious sensation. I thought that even with all the Secret Service protection we now had, it was probably still possible for someone who had enough determination to get close enough to the president to shoot him," end quote. It was March 30th, 1981, just 69 days into Ronald Reagan's presidency. The new president, known for his optimism and charm, had already captured the nation's heart. But on that day, as he left the Washington Hilton after addressing a labor union conference, a shocking event would test his resilience and alter the course of American history. At 2:27 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, President Reagan emerged from the hotel's secure area known as President's Walk. We're here at the Washington Hilton. It was on March 30th, 1981. President Ronald Reagan survived an assassination attempt by gunman John Hinckley. At about 1:45 Washington time on March 30th, President Reagan arrived. He walked through a double door here, our door that's right behind this garage door that's now been installed. Prior to that, there was no garage. Since they have installed this garage door and bricked area, it's known as the President's Walk. It was actually put in here after the assassination of John F. Kennedy. It was known as a secure area. The Secret Service had done many events here, and the president didn't have very far to walk to his limo, the door being open right there. But he entered the President's Walk door, just on the other side of that garage door, on March 30th at 1:45. He came out after giving a speech. He came out at 2:27. When he did, he walked out of that door, headed toward his limo that's right behind our cameraman, Logan. One of the things I noticed when I was preparing to come here and visit was the wall that is here. And I could make out the stone. And right up here, you have a very unique stone that has that curve on this end and then on that end. But then you notice it has that little half circle up there. This is right where you see President Reagan's hand and his thumb lifted up to wave. As he comes out of the door that's now behind this garage door, headed toward his limo back door, he raised his hand to wave, which again puts us lined up with the brick that we're able to actually identify based on the significant cuts in the brick, allow us to identify about where he was standing that day. That lining up pretty good, Logan?
Yes.
Yeah. Then someone called his name, Mr. Reagan, Mr. President, and he turns and does this, and that's when he was shot. As he approached his limousine, 25-year-old John Hinckley Jr. fired 6 shots from a .22 revolver. He fired them in under 2 seconds.
More about John Warnock Hinckley Jr. The Secret Service keeps tabs on 400 individuals it considers the most likely political assassins, but Hinckley's name was not on that list or among 25,000 other names of less probable presidential assailants. So just who is John Hinckley Jr.? We have reports beginning with Charles Murphy.
Highland Park is one of the richest suburban towns in America. John Hinckley and his family lived in a house that would sell today for around $300,000. Hinckley is barely remembered at Highland Park High School, where he graduated in 1973. His picture is in the yearbook, a neatly dressed young man, but teachers had trouble recalling anything about him. One classmate said he just sort of blended in.
He was a kid who didn't really have a lot that made him stand out.
No one from this period of his life could imagine him being accused of yesterday's crime.
To think that I knew someone who had shot a president and that I had no idea that he'd be capable of such an outrageous act.
When he left this neighborhood 8 years ago, he was, by all accounts, well-liked and seemingly normal. Then something went wrong. For the next few years, he would be an intermittent student at Texas Tech at Lubbock, an aimless, somewhat erratic student. The acquisition of guns started here, and on one of his last visits to Dallas last fall, he would buy 2 guns at Rocky's pawn shop, one of which the FBI says was used in the assassination attempt. Charles Murphy, ABC News, Dallas.
Hinckley would have been standing right in this area waiting for the president to exit. According to the numerous reports we've read, and there have been a lot of people that have studied this, there's some excellent books out about it, Hinckley was only about 15 feet, completely unscreened, and about 15 feet from the president, up against or near this wall, which is why now they've put this barricade there to keep people back and away. So this is how close he was.
Get him out! Get him out! Get him out! Down, back! Get him out! No! Get the ambulance! All right, stay back! Get him back! Get the ambulance! I got one!
The nation holds its breath as the president's life hangs in the balance. The bullets, they struck 4 men. The first hit Press Secretary James Brady in the head, leaving him paralyzed. The second struck D.C. police officer Thomas Delante. He was hit in the neck. The third missed. And the fourth hit Secret Service agent Timothy McCarthy in the chest as he shielded President Reagan.
Timothy J. McCarthy, welcome to the Michael Reagan Show.
Oh, thanks, Brandon. Nice talking to you today.
Thank you for being with us. And I know our audience appreciates it as well. And we saw the images over and over again of that assassination attempt, which happened in a matter of seconds going down. And watching your bold and brave actions, I'm sure it was just a matter of natural instinct. That's the way you were trained. But give us your remembrance of that day and the events before, during, and after.
Well, there are no normal days when you're assigned to the President of the United States, but it was a day we were going to the Washington Hilton Hotel, and I arrived at the White House working a day shift around 6 o'clock in the morning for the normal briefings, and we were briefed up on the trip to the Washington Hilton. Special Agent Bill Green did the advance there. Everything seemed normal. He had about a week to do the advance, which was pretty normal, working with local police and all the other federal agencies to set up the security. There was no unusual intelligence on that date, certainly not anything about John Hinckley. We went to the Washington Hilton Hotel. The president gave his speech. In the briefing, they said, as we know, he was only president for about 60 days at that time, and he was still putting his government together, his cabinet and others. So they advised that we wouldn't be doing any rope lines, no handshaking. It was right back to the White House. So we're just about back to the armored limousine and preparing to leave to go back to the White House. But you never know. President Reagan, being the type of person he was, he loved to shake hands. If someone said, "Mr. President," he was going to go over there and shake hands and say hello to him. So you have to be watched very carefully. And so I was watching the president and watching the crowd, and everyone was saying, "Mr. President." And just I turned to see the president over my right shoulder. I looked back to the crowd, and John Hinckley was to my left and pushed himself forward and fired 6 rounds in about 1.5 seconds, and of course hit Tom Delahunty, Jim Brady, myself. The next round hit the armored window of the armored limousine. The round after that, miraculously, ricocheted off the car and hit the president under the left armpit as Jerry Parr and Ray Shattuck were pushing him into the car. And then the 6th round went across the street, and it was in spite of the fact that the president was wounded and quite frankly almost killed, it was a heck of a team effort by people like Bill Green, Ray Shattuck, Jerry Parr, Bob Wanko, a lot of agents that prevented him from being hit more than once, which I think helped save his life. I was injured laying on the ground, but I still had my radio on and was conscious up until the time they took me into surgery and heard that they were taking the president back to the White House. So I was extremely pleased to think at the moment that he wasn't injured. So I was, in spite of the fact I was in a little bit of pain, felt, well, we accomplished our mission. I was deeply disappointed when I heard on my radio that the president was going to George Washington Hospital, because I suspected then, of course, something was wrong. I arrived there.
Wearing a bulletproof vest?
Pardon me?
Were you wearing a bulletproof vest?
No, I don't bring that up, Brandon. The fact that ever since then you have to wear your vest anytime you leave the White House. But going back then to 1981, bulletproof vests, while we had them, they were pretty. Policemen and Secret Service was pretty much optional at that time. But after that, it became mandatory. And as we know, the president was seriously injured. He was almost killed by John Hinckley. But he was a big, strong guy, and he recovered well, and fortunately served out his presidency.
And when the shot started, you as we watched the footage of that day, you begin to back up toward the president to give cover. I mean, was this a conscious movement on your part, or was this just training?
Well, that's right, Brandon. It was training. We simulate those things in the Secret Service constantly. Videotape it, attack someone who is designated as the president. There's several theories that are used. The arm's reach theory, if the attacker is that close, or to cover and evacuate, which is normally the case. And my job was to cover the president as best I could. Ray Shattuck and Jerry Parr quickly pushed him into the car. Other agents were going at Hinckley at that moment. Other agents were on the follow-up car, preparing to get to the hospital and provide security there. So it was, if you look at a lot of the videotape, you'll find that a lot of the policemen and firemen hit the deck, took cover. It's exactly
they didn't have the training you did.
Exactly what they were supposed to do. Our training was quite different. To cover, make ourselves as big as we could, and evacuate the president.
Hold right there. We come back from the break. I want to hear the rest of the story and what you and President Reagan had to say to each other afterwards. You're listening to The Michael Reagan Show. My guest is former Secret Service agent Timothy J. McCarthy.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at www.foundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
And now, substitute teaching for Michael Reagan, Education Czar Brandon House.
Visiting right now with Timothy J. McCarthy, Secret Service agent who stepped in front of the bullet and took it for President Reagan in 1981. As you know, one bullet ricocheted off of the car and caught him under the armpit. And it was very serious, one of these exploding bullets. We're visiting with him. He's joining us here on the Michael Reagan Show. A little bit later, we'll be joined by Ed Meese. Mr. McCarthy, let's pick up. You heard that the president was being rushed off to the hospital as you yourself kept your earpiece in, wanting to hear what was going on, even though you laid there with a bullet wound to the stomach. They took you to the hospital. They took the president to the hospital. Pick it up from there.
Well, actually, I was shot in the chest, Brandon.
Oh, were you?
I know the film shows that I grasped my abdomen.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, it hit me in the chest and then bounced around down through the lung, liver, and diaphragm, so everyone commonly thought I got hit in the stomach or abdomen, but I was hit in the chest. And it bounced around. Because
these were exploding bullets, were they not?
They were, in the sense that they had mercury capsules in them that were denser than the lead, so when they hit something hard, that mercury would go through the lead and create what would be considered an explosion of the lead. But we ended up at the hospital, and Jim Brady was at the hospital, too, all three of us. So it was quite a tense time for George Washington University. It's one thing to have one trauma patient. I suppose it's more to have worse to have two, but to all have three come in at one time. And, of course, the president was seriously wounded. Jim Brady had a catastrophic injury. Mine was bad, but and I was in critical condition for a couple days. But once I got out of surgery, I think they were pretty confident I was going to pull out. But we're certainly it led to the famous story that occurred at George Washington Hospital when Mrs. Reagan arrived, and she insisted on going into the emergency room, and no one was going to stop her. I don't think anyone could have if they wanted to. And she got into the emergency room, and she saw the president, who wasn't doing too well at the time, and they grabbed hands, and as the president said, he goes, "Honey, I forgot to duck." But he did duck, you know. He kind of got pushed. He didn't try to do it, but he got pushed into the car. But anyway, you know, it led to a lot of great stories and anecdotes and so forth that the president told, you know, throughout his presidency.
So when you finally recovered yourself, how many months was that, and then you were back on duty, what were your first words that you and President Reagan had with each other?
Well, actually, the first words go back to the hospital.
Really?
Yeah, I got out in about 10 days, and I was off for about 3 months. And my wife and 2 children at that time came up to the hospital to pick me up to take me home. And I got a message from the president's staff. The president and Mrs. Reagan wanted to see me before I went home. And so I felt that was kind of a bit of an order. It can't come from much higher as far as I'm concerned. So my wife and 2 kids and I went down to see the president and Mrs. Reagan, and he was looking pretty good, but he was also still connected to a lot of those medical machines and so forth. And my 2 kids were 2 and 4 at the time, so my wife, being the doting mother, so to speak, was keeping an eye on the kids because they were doing what kids do at age 2 and 4, and they're around the President of the United States, who's hooked up to a few machines still, though recovering rapidly. And so we had a very nice visit. My wife was getting nervous, you know, when seeing the kids. They might pull a tube out here or there and not understand it. So we had a very nice visit. Mrs. Reagan was gracious as she always was, and as was the president. We were about to walk out the door, Brandon, to leave, and he said, "Tim, hold on, listen. It was McCarthy, Reagan, Delahanty, Brady. What the hell did this guy have against the Irish?" I'll tell you had to admire the man that could take something as serious as this. It was it could have changed the presidency. It could have changed the history of this country, and he had already put it in that perspective. You know, when people say that, people wrote his remarks, he was one of the most spontaneous, funny, witty people I've ever run into. Few people know how many of his speeches that he wrote himself and so forth. And God, it made me. I said, listen, if the leader of the free world can put this in this perspective, I sure can too. And as a result, as soon as I was able to get back on duty, I was happy to do so.
The 5th bullet missed, but the 6th bullet, it ricocheted off the president's limousine, striking President Reagan under his left armpit. Special agent in charge, Jerry Parr, in a tan coat, reacts instantly, shoving President Reagan toward the limousine. Agent Ray Shattuck, he follows, hurling both men into the car. Agent Parr's quick thinking likely spares Reagan a direct hit in the head. As Hinckley fires, labor official Alfred Antonucci strikes Hinckley on the head.
Don't look to be a hero, never thought of a hero. I have to say this, that any man wearing a pair of pants that calls himself a man would have automatically done the same thing.
But the fact is, Al is the one who did it, at the risk of his own life. So in the eyes of many, he is a hero, witnessed by all the honors and awards he's received, including the highest, gifts from the White House, a phone conversation, and a letter from President Reagan. But amid all of this, he remains a modest man.
If somebody is falling or somebody is in danger, automatically you go to help them. You don't think of your life, you don't think of anything. I never thought of the gun. The gun was the farthest away from my mind. But after the first shot and I saw the flame, I knew I had to break the aim of fire.
When you knocked Hinckley to the ground, you were yelling, "Kill him, kill him." Were you at all tempted to kill him at that time?
If it had to be the kill, I would have killed.
Do you think that an assassin should lose his life?
If the other party dies, definitely. I believe in an eye and an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Yes, very, very, very much.
In his letter, President Reagan thanked him by saying, "You responded in a manner that many individuals half your size would find difficult, and to a danger few people ever know."
So even at 5 feet 2 inches, he might be small in stature, but when it comes to courage, he towers over most of us.
Secret Service agent Dennis McCarthy dives across the sidewalk, pinning Hinckley down. Another labor official, Frank McNamara, joins in, landing blows that draw blood. Agent Robert Wanko, he deploys an Uzi from a briefcase, in order to secure the evacuation and deter any further threats. At 2:27 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Secret Service radio crackles shots fired. President Reagan's code name is Rawhide. He's rushed into the limousine that has the code name Stagecoach. No one yet knows that the president has been hit. Inside the limousine, Agent Parr checks President Reagan for wounds. Finding no blood, he initially directs the motorcade back to the White House, that's code-named Crown. But President Reagan coughs up bright, frothy blood, a sign of a punctured lung.
And green coming out.
Horsepower, static. Advise one had shot fired. Shot fired. There are some injuries. Way one on. Power, static. Stagecoach, static. Rawhide is okay. Follow up. Rawhide is okay. Half back, Roger. You want to go to the hospital or back to the White House? We're going to Crown. Okay. Back to the White House. Back to the White House. Rawhide is okay. Roger, we want to go to the emergency room of George Washington. That's the Roger. Go to George Washington fast. Roger, Sergeant Barrow, quick. Get an ambulance. Get the stretcher.
Special Agent Parr makes a split-second decision and redirects the presidential limousine to George Washington University Hospital that is just 4 minutes away. Agent Parr saves the president's life for the second time that day.
My dad did a movie called Code of the Secret Service. He thought it was the worst movie ever made. And he hated it so much, he swore Maureen and I to secrecy. And if we ever went to see the movie, he would write us out of his will. That's how much he hated the movie. Now, think about this. There was a small little boy named Jerry Parr, whose father took him to see, as a little boy, the movie Code of the Secret Service. And based on that movie that little tiny Jerry Parr saw as a child, he decided to become a Secret Service agent, and ends up being the Secret Service agent in charge of the detail who put my dad in the back of the limo that day and only saved his life by taking him to the hospital.
Mr. President, I wonder if you'd tell us about the day when you were shot at the Hilton Hotel.
Well, I think the most unique thing about that was that I heard what I thought was firecrackers, and the next thing I knew, a Secret Service man standing behind me literally picked me up and threw me head first and dived me into the car, the door waiting there. And I got in the car, and he got in behind me, and the door was closed, and we started away, and suddenly I felt the most awful pain that you could imagine. And I hadn't felt it up till then. I didn't feel a bullet hit me or anything. And I said to the agent who was in the car with me, I said, I think you broke a rib when you jumped in on top of me. And just then I coughed, and I had a handful of frothy blood. And I said, and I think the broken rib was punctured a lung. And he, by this time, was telling the driver, George Washington Hospital, and we were on our way. Well, I finished off my handkerchief with the blood, and I finished off his because I kept coughing, and it kept getting more difficult to breathe. We got to the emergency, and I got out and walked into the emergency ward, and the nurse came to meet me, and I said, I'm having trouble breathing, and just about that time my knees began to get rubbery. The next thing I knew, I was on a gurney, and it wasn't until they cut my clothes off of me, which included a brand new suit I was wearing for the first time, and then found the wound back up here where it had gone in. The pain had come when it had hit that 7th rib, and the pain came when it glanced off the rib and then went on down through my lung and ended about an inch from my heart. And that was about the time then that they told me I'd been shot. I hadn't known it.
President Reagan, 70 years old, walks into the hospital under his own power, but collapses to one knee just inside the door. The bullet had broken a rib, punctured a lung, and stopped just an inch from the president's heart. And your father wouldn't get on a gurney. Your father demanded to walk into the hospital, didn't he?
Yeah, until he buckled. He didn't know he was shot until he buckled, and then they cut that suit off of him, put it on the floor, and, you know, and the only thing he worried about was the Hinkley's ever buy him a new suit. I mean, that was his concept the next morning at 10 o'clock when I saw him, but he did it with humor.
True beauty isn't applied. It's nourished from within. Bella Grace Elixir, a luxurious, scientifically crafted blend designed to restore radiance, vitality, and strength at a cellular level. At the heart of Bella Grace Elixir lies cat's claw, a powerful herb from the Amazon known for its ability to control inflammation and protect collagen. With Verisol collagen peptides, it goes beyond the surface, stimulating your body's natural collagen production to reduce fine lines, improve skin elasticity, and promote real, visible change. Bella Grace Elixir doesn't stop at collagen. It includes astaxanthin, one of nature's most powerful antioxidants. 6,000 times stronger than vitamin C, astaxanthin protects your skin from harmful UV rays and environmental stress, while locking in hydration and promoting a radiant, youthful glow. Experience the power of nature with Bella Grace Elixir at melissahousebg.com. Discover the science behind Bella Grace Elixir at melissahousebg.com. Read powerful testimonials from doctors and real customers who've experienced life-changing results, and explore other wellness products from Bella Grace. Bella Grace Elixir is more than just a product. It's a solution. Visit melissahousebg.com today.
While being prepped for emergency surgery, President Reagan quipped to his wife, Nancy, "Honey, I forgot to duck." And to his surgeons, he says, "Please tell me you're all Republicans." They replied, "Today, Mr. President, we're all Republicans."
Good evening, Mr. President.
Please tell me you're Republicans.
Today, Mr. President, we are all Republicans.
The trauma team was led by Dr. Joseph Giordano. They find a small gunshot wound under President Reagan's left arm. The bullet had grazed a rib, lodged in his lung, and stopped less than an inch from his heart. President Reagan had lost over half his blood volume. The 105-minute thoracotomy removes the bullet, and Reagan's life is saved. With Vice President George H.W. Bush in Texas, confusion gripped the White House. Secretary of State Alexander Haig declared, quote, "I am in control here," end quote.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to touch upon a few matters associated with today's tragedy. First, as you know, we're in close touch with the Vice President, who is returning to Washington. We have in the Situation Room all of the officials of the Cabinet who should be here and ready at this time. We have informed our friends abroad of the situation, the President's condition as we know it, stable, now undergoing surgery, and there are absolutely no alert measures that are necessary at this time or contemplated. Now, if you have some questions, I'd be happy to.
Crisis management, would that be put into effect when you push to arrive?
Crisis management is in effect.
Who is making the decisions for the government right now? Who's making the decisions?
Constitutionally, gentlemen, you have the President, the Vice President, and the Secretary of State in that order. And should the President decide he wants to transfer the helm to the Vice President, he will do so.
He has not done that.
As of now, I am in control here in the White White House, pending return of the Vice President, and in close touch with him. If something came up, I would check with him, of course.
His statement, meant to reassure, well, it only highlighted the need for clearer crisis protocols. For a time, the nation held its breath, fearing the worst. But Reagan's resilience, well, it shined through. Just 12 days later, he was released from the hospital, and within weeks, he was back in the Oval Office. Reagan's recovery, it was not just physical, but also symbolic. His strength and his humor in the face of adversity, it boosted his public image and set the tone for his presidency. While President Reagan recovered, the other victims faced long-term consequences. James Brady, shot in the head, was left permanently disabled.
This Jim Brady, who seems to have a head wound, does have a head wound, but it's unclear from this videotape whether that head wound was suffered as he hit the pavement or is from a gunshot wound.
President Reagan has kept you on as press secretary, a measure of great respect, hasn't it been?
Yes.
Are you enjoying that function?
And I try to do my best at it.
I bet you do, Jim. You're in the office, what, every Friday?
Well, I'm in at least 2 days a week.
That's great.
But I don't tell the cats what 2 days I'm coming in.
You're going to check.
Because they say when the cat's away, the mice will play.
Okay.
The cat just shows up.
Well, that's good. The bear shows up. Aren't you the bear?
I am the bear.
You are the bear. Jim, it's been a long recovery, hasn't it?
It's still going on.
Yeah, you work hard at it?
Yeah. The physical terrorists are on me all the time.
Yeah, I'll bet. What do you remember? What's your first... You never lost consciousness on the way to the hospital. But what's your first memory after the surgery? What do you remember when you came out of it and Sarah was there and people were there?
That I was alive.
Yeah. Do you have any bitterness?
Oh, that's primarily a negative thing to do, and I try not to do that. I can work up a good head of steam on that boy that's over at St. Eve's, just like that.
On John Hinckley Jr.
But it's negative. It's not going to go anywhere. So why just get angry over it?
Secret Service agent Timothy McCarthy, shot in the chest. He made a full recovery, while police officer Thomas Delante suffered permanent nerve damage and was forced to retire. The assassination attempt, well, it reshaped presidential security. Crowds were pushed back even further. Scanners increased, and secure tents were used at entry points. Communication between the White House and Secret Service, it was strengthened. John Hinckley, the would-be assassin, was charged with 13 counts, including attempted assassination. His trial became a landmark case in the U.S. legal history. Found not guilty by reason of insanity, he was institutionalized at St. Elizabeth's Hospital. He resided there for over 3 decades before being released in 2016 under strict conditions. July 6, 2005. This is Tom Harper. Man figures plankton stopped his rare cancer. We got more of a response from this from our viewers than anything else you and I have ever discussed.
Tom Harper, 20 years ago, he had mesothelioma, deadly lung cancer, was given weeks to live, and he just intuitively started to eat the phytoplankton out of his fish tanks because he fed the phytoplankton to his shellfish. He was a shellfish farmer. And when he went in for the surgery, the surgeon came out of the operating room and told his family, I have not ever seen anything like it. The cancer is benign, and Tom Harper lived for years. He retired in Hawaii. We're not making any claim.
Here he is in his own words.
Started on a daily routine of just taking a bit of paste, putting it in my mouth, and
wash it down with a drink of water. Within about 10 to 15 days, here I am, less pain in my back. I knew that something was going on, so I just kept eating half a teaspoon of this paste a day. I was booked to go for surgery in Victoria where they were going to do what they call a talc treatment. They went in there to have a look, saw something they never seen before, took 11 sites, sent them away for biopsy. I got the news back. Everything was benign. They just did not know what to make of it. Everything was absolutely clean. And I've tried dieting all my life because I'm a diabetic. If it's a coincidence or not, I don't know. My blood sugar started dropping. My weight started falling off. Here I am, no longer requiring insulin, and I was taking 88 units a day of insulin. I can eat just about what I want in moderation, and I have no elevated sugar levels, and I feel fabulous.
People, you hear the word cancer, and they want you to be instilled with fear. Cancer is nothing but a profound failure of the immune system. And what happened with Tom Harper is the phytoplankton is microscopic. It's God's microscopic food. And the Gadatiana is the most nutritionally comprehensive strain phytoplankton in the world. David Hunter studied phytoplankton for 20 years because he worked for Tom Harper and he was there in person and witnessed Tom's recovery. It's about getting pure nutrition inside your cells. And what happens, your body balances again or goes back to homeostasis. And when your body is pH balanced or in homeostasis, disease can't grow. It is literally microscopic, pure single cell plant food with protein and omega-3 fatty acids, omega-6 fatty acids, with amino acids and vitamins and minerals. 1 scoop a day. There's 90 billion plant cells in here just for everyday nutrition and energy and, cognitive support, because this is God's pure nutrition.
Go to melissahousegpa.com today. Discover the science and learn more about the wonderful benefits of Gaditana phytoplankton. That's melissahousegpa.com. melissahousegpa.com.
For President Reagan, the attempted assassination seemed to galvanize his presidency. His recovery, it was remarkable. He was released from the hospital just 12 days after the attempt, and he addressed Congress a month later.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
Wouldn't want to talk me into an encore, would you? Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, distinguished members of the Congress, honored guests, and fellow citizens, I have no words to express my appreciation for that greeting. I have come to speak to you tonight about our economic recovery program and why I believe it's essential that the Congress approve this package, which I believe will lift the crushing burden of inflation off of our citizens and restore the vitality to our economy and our industrial machine. First, however, and due to events of the past few weeks, will you permit me to digress for a moment from the all-important subject of why we must bring government spending under control and reduce tax rates? I'd like to say a few words directly to all of you and to those who are watching and listening tonight, because this is the only way I know to express to all of you on behalf of Nancy and myself our appreciation for your messages, your flowers, and most of all, your prayers. Not only for me, but for those others who fell beside me. The warmth of your words, the expression of friendship, and yes, love, meant more to us than you can ever know. You have given us a memory that we'll treasure forever. And you've provided an answer to those few voices that were raised saying that what happened was evidence that ours is a sick society. The society we heard from is made up of millions of compassionate Americans and their children from college age to kindergarten. As a matter of fact, as evidence of that, I have a letter with me. The letter came from Peter Sweeney. He's in the 2nd grade in the Riverside School in Rockville Center. And he said, I hope you get well quick, or you might have to make a speech in your pajamas. And he added a postscript. P.S. If you have to make a speech in your pajamas, I warned you. Well, sick societies don't produce men like the two who recently returned from outer space. Sick societies don't produce young men like Secret Service agent Tim McCarthy, who placed his body between mine and the man with the gun simply because he felt that's what his duty called for him to do. Sick societies don't produce dedicated police officers like Tom Delahanty. Or able and devoted public servants like Jim Brady. Sick societies don't make people like us so proud to be Americans and so very proud of our fellow citizens.
His approval rating soared to nearly 70%. He went on to win a landslide re-election in 1984. The attempt on President Reagan's life not only tested his mettle, but also the nation's. His graceful handling of the crisis, it reinforced his image as a strong, compassionate leader, shaping the rest of his presidency. The attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan was a pivotal moment in American history. It revealed the fragility of leadership, but also the resilience of the human spirit. President Reagan's survival and his recovery, it became a symbol of hope and strength, defining his legacy as one of America's most beloved presidents.
We're not, as some would have us believe, doomed to an inevitable decline. I do not believe in a fate that will fall on us no matter what we do. I do believe in a fate that will fall on us if we do nothing. A man who might have been one of the greatest among the founding fathers, Dr. Joseph Warren, president of the Massachusetts Congress, said to his fellow Americans, "Our country is in danger, but not to be despaired of. On you depend the fortunes of America. You are to decide the important question upon which rests the happiness and the liberty of millions yet unborn. Act worthy of yourselves." The sloping hills of Arlington National Cemetery, with its row upon row of simple white markers bearing crosses or stars of David, they add up to only a tiny fraction of the price that has been paid for our freedom. Each one of those markers is a monument to the kind of hero I spoke of earlier. Their lives ended in places called Belleau Wood, the Argonne, Omaha Beach, Salerno, and halfway around the world on Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Pork Chop Hill, the Chosin Reservoir, and in 100 rice paddies and jungles of a place called Vietnam. Under one such marker lies a young man, Martin Treptow, who left his job in a small-town barber shop in 1917 to go to France with the famed Rainbow Division. There on the Western Front, he was killed trying to carry a message between battalions under heavy artillery fire. We're told that on his body was found a diary. On the flyleaf, under the heading, "My Pledge," he had written these words: "America must win this war. Therefore I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone. With God's help, we can and will resolve the problems which now confront us. And after all, why shouldn't we believe that? We are Americans. God bless you and thank you.
Many people like myself believe it was providential protection that day for President Reagan's life, who went on to serve 2 terms and be one of the greatest presidents in history, and certainly modern history. Reporting from the attempted assassination spot, I'm Brandon House for Worldview 2.